There's more breaking news we're following tonight. A New York judge ruling that former President Trump, his son Donald Trump Jr., and daughter Ivanka must testify in the state's civil investigation of their business practices. CNN's Kara Scannell is working the story for us. She's just outside Trump Tower in New York City for us. So, Kara, what's the latest?
Well, Wolf, that's right. So following a 2-hour hearing today, the judge issued this 8-page opinion. In the hearing, Trump lawyers for the Trumps argued that they shouldn't have to comply with the subpoena for their testimony, saying that because the New York Attorney General is working in parallel on the criminal investigation, they should have the same right they would have then. That is to mean that they wanted immunity if they were to testify. Now, the judge fully rejected their arguments, writing, in the final analysis, a state attorney general commences investigating a business entity, uncovers copious amounts of possible financial fraud, and wants to question under oath several of the entity's principals, including its namesake. She has the clear right to do so. Now, the judge also criticized the Trump Organization's response earlier this week when their longtime accounting firm quit and said that their nearly 10 years of financials should no longer be relied upon. The Trump Organization said that essentially because Mazars did not declare that there was fraud, it meant that the New York Attorney General's investigation was moot. Well, the judge called that preposterous. He also said it was reminiscent of Lewis Carroll, George Orwell, and alternative facts. Now, lawyers for the former president and his two sons said they will likely appeal this ruling. They're going to ask the appeals court for a stay, that is, to put off this 3-week deadline when they would have to testify. Now, it's not clear what will happen next, but the lawyers did suggest that they might assert their Fifth Amendment and not answer any of these questions. Wolf?
All right, CNN's Kara Scannell outside Trump Tower in New York. Thank you. Let's get some more on all of this. Joining us now, CNN's chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin and CNN's senior political correspondent Abby Phillip. She's the anchor of Inside Politics Sunday. Jeffrey, former President Trump and his kids argued that sitting for a deposition now would violate, they say, their constitutional rights. This judge certainly disagreed. What do you make of this ruling?
Well, it was actually very straightforward. This is a legitimate investigation, and the Attorney General of New York has subpoena power. She subpoenaed the former president and his two children, and they have a choice. They can testify or they can take the Fifth. The problem with taking the Fifth is, first of all, it's embarrassing, but that's no bar to having to do it. But second, in a civil case, as opposed to a criminal case, a jury can draw what's called an adverse inference. If you take the Fifth in a civil case, the jury can assume, if it comes to that, that you did something wrong, that there is an incriminating answer there. So that's why the Trump family wants to avoid having to take the Fifth. But the answer to that is too bad. That's what the law is. And so it's not a surprise that the judge ruled this way.
You know, Abby, after dodging accountability through scandal after scandal after scandal, what will it say if Trump is deposed in this investigation, or if he decides, let's say, to plead the Fifth?
Well, you know, frankly, if Trump decides to testify, it could end disastrously. I mean, partly because he could simply tell the truth, which would likely incriminate him. I mean, the reality is that Trump is not the person to be relied upon for giving an accurate assessment of his financial standing. I mean, it's evidenced by this lengthy statement that he issued earlier this week, in which he made all kinds of claims and put all kinds of numbers and statements out there that I'm sure sent his lawyers running for some Tylenol for a headache. I mean, this is a really potentially incriminating situation for Trump if he were to testify, because I'm not sure that he really understands you know, the significance of what he could say that could incriminate him. And as Jeffrey said, if he doesn't testify, then the jury could make a negative inference from that, and that too could be damaging for the outcome of the case, perhaps less so for his standing in the public sphere, what the public learns eventually about what he has to say on this topic.
You know, Jeffrey, Trump's lawyers had argued that he didn't have enough information to answer questions, but as Abby just pointed out, Trump then goes out there and issues this lengthy statement proclaiming to have, quote, fantastic assets, including a breakdown in dollar amounts. He's not an easy client, is he?
He's not an easy client. However, he has testified under oath many times. As we know, he's very litigious. But before he became president, he is actually expert as filibustering through these examinations. It's a very different story now that he's a former president, now that he is under all this scrutiny. But, I have made the mistake of counting him out before, and even though this investigation is very serious, it's a long way from an indictment or a conviction of Donald Trump for anything.
And it's just one of several legal issues, Abby, that Trump is facing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is probably the one that he's the most concerned about, because this has to do with his personal and his business finances. And, we all know that this is something that Trump has been very sensitive about. He has fought to hide his tax returns for this very reason. And some people around him believe that he sees the presidency as a way to shield himself from some of these types of investigations.
And just one more point. This is not like January 6th, where there's a time limit in how long the investigation can go on. Letitia James has a 4-year term. She's likely to get reelected to another, so this could go on for quite some time.